what are the chances that the ATHs actually end up in Las Vegas?
I still think it's less than 50%. I don't feel like we've seen a real rendering.
Here we go. Melissa Lockard from The Athletic covers the A's, among other things. Great to have you on the show as we're going to run through some storylines, Melissa, which we'll get to in just a moment. I just want to get your thoughts real quick overall. Are you surprised we're having you on and actually talking about a few decent moves for the Athletics? Like, I'm trying to look at it a little bit half full. Obviously, you and I, we saw each other last year around this time at Fans Fest. The Oakland situation aside, this franchise itself hasn't really been competitive for the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there sort of has been an ebb and flow in terms of how the franchise has operated over the last, I don't know, 25 years or so, where you'll see a concentration of years where they are competitive and then a concentration of years where they're not. And I think from a player development standpoint, they're starting to enter that window of where they would be competitive. So, it makes sense that they'd be adding. Obviously, being back on revenue sharing and having to spend that money has allowed them to actually sign a few players on the open market. But it doesn't shock me that they would be trying to improve and not sell off at this stage, just given sort of what their pattern has been in terms of player development in the past.
I am by no means a writer with my full-time job here, Melissa, but let me know how I did. So first off, we're going to say goodbye, Oakland. John Fisher can't wait to watch Aaron Judge mash in Sacramento. How are they going to draw in the capital of California? We've got daddy money where the A's are forced to spend some of that money, which we referred to. You got to get at least to about the 105 mil number. Brent Rooker got paid. And is there an underdog story involved? Can this team actually make a postseason run and set up the dream matchup that we're all looking for, the Rays and the A's in the ALCS in a battle of minor league ballparks? So, Melissa, let's start at the top here and get your thoughts on the first storyline, which is the A's moving to Sacramento for now. How do you think this is going to play out for not just the area, but also for the team and for opponents dealing with what is a minor league environment, even though they did obviously make some renovations and they're still doing that to try and polish it up and making it a little bit less, minor league-ish?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a stadium that cannot be bigger than what is out there. So you got, I think 14,000 is its capacity. And I think they probably will draw around that most nights, right? Like, I think there is an excitement in the area to have a major league team. I think, they're going to have a fairly full ballpark. What that means for the experience for the players when you're still looking at it as a AAA ballpark, I think remains to be seen. And obviously those guys will be able to tell us as it comes. But there is some, local excitement there in Sacramento. There's definitely been some interesting moves. I think taking Stomper, or the elephant anyway, off of the uniforms and replacing it with the Sacramento patch, but not actually calling them the Sacramento Athletics is an interesting move. Sort of having your cake and eating it too in some ways. And I think, that they are out in the community a little bit, as opposed to, hiding from the community like they had the last couple of years in Oakland, is certainly a change. So I'm sure it'll be a honeymoon period there. What happens in year 2 or 3, I think, will be a lot more interesting than what happens the first year.
How are these trades and free agents that they have signed pay off? Because, if we're talking about a playoff team, these are the guys that have to be at the center of it. And John Fisher all of a sudden came up with some money that he just mysteriously didn't have in a much larger market.
Well, he came up with the other owner's money, I think, is the main thing. It got back on revenue sharing. So, I think they are a better team than they were at this time last year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They've got a little bit more veteran depth in the starting rotation. I still think they need more. I'm surprised they haven't been the team that's bought Jordan Montgomery's contract yet with that remaining amount of money. But they certainly have more stability there. They have some younger guys who could, kind of help at the back end of that rotation. Ken Waldichuk coming back from Tommy John surgery. And, that offense was starting to gel a little bit this year, and they're moving into a ballpark that will help their offense even more. So, you're looking at the main guys still being Brent Rooker, still being Lawrence Butler. the development of Tyler Soderstrom and Zach Geloff. Shea Langolier is probably going to get 35, 40 homers with that ballpark to play in. So that's kind of where their core is. But adding more stability to the rotation certainly will help.
All right, how nice was it to see Brent Rooker get paid? I know he's been on here a bunch of times with us. I'm happy for him. This guy, if you don't know his story, was a high draft pick, SEC Triple Crown out of Mississippi State. Goes kind of bounces around team to team, never really gets a chance. Gets to go to the Athletics. We call them the ATHs on here, by the way, because they're not Sacramento, they're not Oakland, they're who knows where they're going to play. So he gets to the ATHs. He has a couple nice years. He has an unbelievable year last year, and he gets paid. So how happy are we that Brent Rooker finally got paid, and he's now kind of the face of the franchise?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that was the no-brainer move of the offseason if you were the A's front office. I mean, here's a guy who is not only their best player, but also a huge influence in that clubhouse. He is the veteran leadership there. I don't think there's any reason to think that he won't continue to be that player for the next couple of years. And, if you're Brent Rooker, it made all the sense in the world to take that money too, because he is older. He was older when he signed out of college. It took him a while to get established. Now he's guaranteed for life with that money, but he also knows that the A's do have a history of, if they aren't going to pay the player anymore, they have done a good job of trading players to places where their careers take off. So I don't think there's a downside for either side really in that deal. And I am really happy for a guy that worked as hard as he did to turn himself into the player that he is to get that money.
Is there a chance that we see Rays and the ATHs in the playoffs? Maybe more so the ATHs we're talking about now. And we even asked Rooker this the other day when he was on. Will they allow them to play in Sacramento if they make the playoffs?
I believe they've said no. I believe that the contingency plan has been for both of those teams to have, somewhere else to play in the playoffs. I don't know if there's been like an official announcement, but I think that's what we've heard. The interesting thing would be if you did have a playoff series in one of those minor league parks for that team, could they outdraw the one wild card game they played at the Oakland Coliseum in 2019? And I'm not sure they could, even if you had a 5-game series. So, I think that's an interesting thing. But, like you look at the AL West right now, Houston's still obviously a little bit in flux, but they're not better than they were necessarily. The Angels are maybe a little bit better, but they have a lot of ways to go. The Mariners have done nothing. So, you're looking at a division that is not going to be the best in baseball by a long shot. So it wouldn't be out of this realm of possibility that they could make a run.
Okay. What you just said, I just can't get my head wrapped around it. So if the ATHs make the postseason, they're not going to play where they played their whole season. Yeah. Why the F not? I don't understand. They battled and they went through this whole thing. Same with the Rays. So the Rays have all their stuff packed away in Steinbrenner Field. The ATHs have it all packed away, whatever the ballpark's called in Sacramento now. I don't even know. River Cat Park or whatever it's called, right? But they have all their stuff packed away, and they have all these things and the promotions. The fans have been behind them. And then Major League Baseball is going to say, oh, by the way, great job, guys. You're playing your playoff games in San Francisco at the Giants Park? Like, that is just ludicrous to me that we would even be having this conversation.
I mean, it's ludicrous that we have two teams playing in minor league ballparks when you have, at the very least, one empty major league ready ballpark now. And, whatever you think of the Oakland Coliseum, it's still a major league ballpark and it's just sitting there. So there's a lot of things that don't make sense, especially about the A's situation. Obviously, there was, a natural disaster that impacted the Rays situation. But, even there's no plan for what happens next for the Rays and their stadium situation. I think, the A's is far from settled as to what happens next after this next year, given what's going on in Nevada with their budget situation. And the fact that, frankly, construction costs in California and in Las Vegas are probably going to go way up because construction in Los Angeles is going to be so intense over the next few years. So I don't know what the end game is for either of these franchises, to be honest. But, maybe they build the floating ballpark off the coast of somewhere, and that's where both of them will play the postseason series, something.
They could play Squid Game. They could play the Squid Games on some random island and just invite certain. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Who knows what they're going to do? But my thing is, I got to ask you this: since you brought up Vegas, and you know more about this than probably any of us on this show do. What are the chances that the A's actually end up in Las Vegas? Because until I see a shovel, now not the golden shovel that John Fisher throws over his shoulder and is like, here we go. I'm talking about like beams going in and actual stadium walls being built. What are the chances that the ATHs actually end up in Las Vegas?
I still think it's less than 50%. I don't feel like we've seen a real rendering. Like there's been sort of little kind of haphazard renderings that we've seen. Maybe there are renderings that exist for, the companies that would actually build this thing that are a lot more detailed. But you compare the renderings to other park projects that you've seen that actually did get done, and even ones that don't, like some of the ones in Chicago that frankly have been a lot more impressive than what we've seen. And those are like, pie in the sky sort of things. And yeah, they blew up the casino, but there's no building that's taking place there. There's a huge budget deficit that's starting in Nevada now, and I don't know how they justify giving away money when they have to make ends meet for the state there. And the fact that they're kind of making these inroads in Sacramento tells me they're not so sure either. They're kind of keeping all the eggs in the basket that they can, because I don't think they know what's going to happen next either. So I don't think they've positioned themselves particularly well to have moved out of a market that they could have stayed in stasis until they figured out where they were going to go to find out what's next.
There was no better slogan than "Rooted in Oakland" when we knew they were desperately trying to leave several years ago. That was a Dave Cavell masterpiece, who is now gone from the team. So good job by him to kind of keep his legacy really, really strong. Can't wait to have him on the show. But Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate the time. Everyone give Melissa a follow if you don't already.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.